In this lesson, we'll create a custom UI table view cell to enhance the presentation of our music list. Now, our music list doesn't look too bad as it stands, but we could probably enhance it to look a little bit better, and we can create a custom table view cell to do this. Luckily, Storyboards make doing this a fairly straightforward process. Let me first go under the controllers group, and I'll highlight that and create a new group called cells. And I'll type Command N and go to the tap harmonic group, select Objective-C class, and click Next. And let me call this music list, and I will have it extend from UI table view cell. So my cell will be called music list cell. I'll click Next and create. Alright, so the default methods that get created by this template, I'm not going to need for the purposes of creating the cell, so I'll just highlight these and delete them. Let me switch over to the header file, and let me define a few properties. So I'll create a property for the album image view, so non-atomic, weak, and I do want this to be an IB outlet because we will hook this up in Interface Builder. I will create one for the album name, a UI label, and create a property, another UI label for the artist name. Switch over to the implementation and synthesize these. Alright, so that's all we'll need for our music list cell. Now I'll switch over to the storyboard and double click on the table view to zoom in on it. I'll highlight the cell and open up the utilities section. Slide that over a little bit. Now the style is currently set to basic, but let me change that to custom. And let me change the class type to the new class that we just created, so I'll call this music list cell. And I need to create some components on the screen representing those various components we defined in the cell. So I created an image view. So I'll highlight that and drag that onto here. And let's set its size to, we'll make that 50 by 50. And I can resize this cell just a little bit. So slide this over fairly close to the left. Maybe down just a little bit. All right, that looks pretty good. Now I want to add a couple labels on here as well. So I'll search for label. And I'll drag a label on there. And I can actually go up to either the edit menu and hit duplicate, or more conveniently, I can just type Command D, and that will duplicate that label for me. So I can create two labels. This first one, let me stretch this out a bit. Do the same thing with my label below it. And let me look at its attributes. This is currently set to a 17-point font. The size looks pretty good, but let me make that bold. Select Done. And I do want to uncheck this auto shrink checkbox. And for our label below, let's shrink that down maybe a little bit. We'll maybe make that a 15-point font. And I'll just adjust these over a little bit. Alright, so that layout looks pretty good, I think. Now I could get similar results to what I'm seeing here by using one of the standard cells, but using its UI table view cell style subtitle. But by creating this custom cell, it gives me a little more control over the individual components on the screen, and also provides me a good basis for further customization if I want to change things in the future. Now the next thing I need to do is I need to hook up these individual components to the properties defined in my cell. So I can do that by just clicking on a blank area in the cell and holding down the Control key. So I'll hold down the Control key and click to the label at the top. And I want to hook this up to the album name label property. I'll do that same process for the artist name label. Select artist name. And I also want to hook up the image view. So album image view. Now let me go back to my music list view controller, and we'll make a couple changes here as well. I first want to import my music list cell. And then we'll scroll down to this cell for row at index path. Currently this is typed as a generic UI table view cell, but let's change this to our music list cell. And we'll remove these current sets, then set these to the various properties on my cell. So I'll set the album image view to the album image, set the album name to the album name property, and the artist name to the artist name. All right, that looks pretty good. I'll hit Command R to run the app and see how things look. There we go. So now we have a little nicer presentation. We've got some better margins around our images. We additionally have added the artist name down here at the bottom, so it makes it a little easier to identify this album. Let's try our swiping behavior. Well, we can see one problem we have right off the bat is we're not getting the same behavior that we had before. Unfortunately, our delete button is now obscuring our text. Let's try that on another one. So not quite the polished behavior we had. Well, we can try to resolve this by adjusting these properties a little bit. So I'll highlight my two labels and go over to the sizing inspector. By selecting this line in the middle, this will set the auto-sizing behavior for the cells to automatically expand and shrink as the cell needs to. Let's try this out and see how this looks. Well, that looks pretty good on the delete showing up, but it's still not quite the same as what we had before. So in the next lesson, we'll take a look at how we can resolve that. But for now, our table cell looks pretty good, and I'm happy with the results. So I think that's a better presentation than what we had before. So in this lesson, we've seen how to create a custom table view cell. And storyboards, as you can see, make this really easy to implement and represents a significant improvement over what you had to do in a nib-based app.